As I watch this happen, with Republicans reacting like this, and while they are led by this.
Civil rights led to white people being, quote, very badly treated. The Times characterized his comments as a blunt distillation of his administration's racial politics, which rest on the belief that white people have become the real victims of discrimination in America.
Which is bringing us back to this.
They're taking us backwards to this type of environment where black folks are not treated with equal representation, where we're pre-1965.
There are so many, predominantly on the right, who want to separate politics from sports. Although, as we have seen, New York Giants starting quarterback Jackson Dart, former Pittsburgh Steelers Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown, live golfer Bryson DeChambeau, former WWE wrestler Triple H, Kansas City Chiefs kicker Harrison Butker, they're all behind Trump at the White House. Dana White, the head of the UFC, speaking at the RNC 3 times. It's just a total myth. In light of these new laws in the South,
This is a map of the Confederacy. This is a map of a Jim Crow South provided by Florida Atlantic University. And this is a map of the possible redistricting of the U.S. South. Notice how they're almost exactly the same.
some have called on the world of sports to step up.
Let's talk about the NAACP's call when it comes to athletes and protesting, not going to these predominantly white institutions. That was this one article that was the most insane thing I read, where this one black journalist goes, well, why are we asking these young people to do this? As if we don't have a history of young black people being involved for fighting for rights of black people.
Others have asked, how can this even work? Piggybacking off Roland, the NAACP has specifically called on athletes to defect from schools in the SEC, the Southeastern Conference, and look elsewhere. Look, there are a plethora of examples, but for this clip, I want to point specifically to the world of college football because there is some history here that everyone needs to know.
As the 1970s dawned, Alabama was still in the throes of the struggle for civil rights, and Bear Bryant's Crimson Tide was still all white.
To give one an idea, Birmingham, Alabama was the most segregated city in the United States, according to Martin Luther King Jr. Now, understand the times that we were in when he said that.
On May 17, 1954, the court's decision came down.
Shortly after noon, Earl Warren, the Chief Justice of the United States, began to read a unanimous opinion of the Supreme Court. Ruling in 5 cases in which 5 Negro children sought the right to go to the same schools as white children, the court said, separate educational facilities are inherently unequal.
Further steps were taken in later years, following in the wake of Marshall's success.
After Brown v. Board, many schools integrated. One specifically fought back.
I draw the line in the dust and toss the gauntlet before the feet of tyranny, and I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever.
The state that called George Wallace home, the former governor of Alabama. To give an idea of this man's character, at one point Wallace blocked the entrance to the university to prevent black students from enrolling. Then there's Autherine Lacey.
Seeking the best possible education in the state, Lucy decided to apply to graduate school at the University of Alabama, despite the fact that the UA campus remained segregated at the time. On September 13, 1952, Autherine was notified she had been accepted to the graduate school at UA. However, when school officials discovered she was not white, they quickly rescinded her application pursuant to state law and denied her admittance.
It would be litigated for 3 years. In 1955, she enrolled, yet she would last only 3 days. A mob assailed her. She hid for hours before getting to safety. The school suspended her, then expelled her. Yes, you heard that correctly. Expelled her. Not of her doing, but because of the racist mobs that went and made her life a living hell. In football, the Alabama Crimson Tide, the creme de la creme. Their coach, Paul Bear Bryant, inherited an all-white team. He served as their coach from 1958 to 1974. From 1960 to 1966, they went a whopping 68-6-3. Now think about these two polarizing figures representing the same state. You have George Wallace, who preached segregation, and Paul Bear Bryant, a godlike figure who, and this is true, tried integrating the University of Kentucky, where he was head coach, per HBO Sports and other outlets. The school did not allow it. Yet at Alabama, Paul Bear Bryant was quoted as saying, and you will see it on your screens right here, "We're not recruiting N-word athletes. That's a policy decision for others to make. But N-word athletes and players in the Southeastern Conference games, they are a-coming." Year after year, they would refuse to play integrated teams. University of Alabama football. Per HBO Sports, at one point, they tried scheduling Boston College, but BC would not come to the state, citing George Wallace and Bull Connor. At the time, the ACC had begun integrating. The SEC and Southwest Conference would push back. As the years went on, many schools adapted, realizing, not only is this the right thing to do, but also society and specifically our football teams would benefit. So civil rights attorney U.W. Clement, who would go on to become Alabama's first black federal judge, suggested to Bryant he recruit black athletes. Bryant would claim, I can't find any. Just Delulu land here. Thus, the school's Black Student Association filed a lawsuit in the spring of 1969, charging it with racial discrimination in athletics. Meanwhile, at that point in time, the NCAA added an extra game to the schedule, and Paul Bear Bryant had an idea.
Then, Bryant asked his good friend John McKay of USC if he'd bring his Trojans to Birmingham to open the 1970 season.
Now let's paint the picture of the USC Trojans at the time, shall we? In 1970, they had 18 black players in their squad. Understand the dynamics at play here. You had a school that was denying black excellence on the football field and academically. They did not want black folks going to their schools. And yet, the University of Southern California, with an all-black backfield and a black quarterback, were coming to town. Locally, the consensus amongst black folks were that they badly wanted the University of Southern California to win. And they wouldn't be disappointed. The Tide were embarrassed on their home field, 42-21.
Outside of the stadium, there were hundreds of black people, not a white face there. And they were singing hymns and holding candles, and a couple were beating Bibles on the bus. Happy that we were there with them. Happy that we'd done what we'd done.
Soon, the Afro-American Student Association withdrew its lawsuit.
The only aim for the lawsuit was to require Bear Bryant to recruit black football players.
Thus, the recruits, they came in. Wilbur Jackson would suit up for the Tide. He was later named to the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame. John Mitchell became, via Steelers.com, the first black player to play for the Tide. By 1972, all those white schools that did not want to integrate, they integrated. And by 1973, Alabama's roster was a third black. USC professor Jeff Fellenser would tell McKenna Ortega, it's such an important story for USC students to know. It's really a human rights story about the brotherhood of sports with so many layers. Sports can serve as a change agent in our society, bringing communities together and people. I mean, it gives us hope, which brings me to this.
In a league where black players make up nearly 70% of rosters.
Black players make up the majority of the labor force in the National Football League. You know what that means? The best players in college football are predominantly black. Before integration, HBCUs were showcasing some of, if not the best talent in the country. And yet, what really strikes a nerve with me is how many are saying keep politics out of sports, keep sports out of politics. But really what we see from the right is that no. Only my flavor of politics is what I want sprinkled in. The amount of power and the strength in numbers that black players and white players have in this situation, specifically college football, should not be glossed over. And the reason I say this is because the University of Alabama, Clemson, University of Florida, University of Texas, LSU, I could go on and on. They and their schools are built off of black labor. The biggest moneymakers, and nearly each and every state, specifically in the South, is off of football and basketball. If these players, and again, I am not putting the onus on black athletes. I think it's on athletes. But many have called, including the NAACP, for black athletes. If they were to withhold their labor, which is the strongest card to play, you will see how quickly these states adapt. Because can you imagine the University of Georgia and Kirby Smart not being able to suit up a single black athlete on their team? Do you understand how embarrassing it would be for Texas A&M to not only fall outside of the top 25, but not even make a bowl game because they went a whole season with 4 wins? Can you possibly even insert into your mind what would occur if schools in the South, like the University of Tennessee, could not even make a bowl game as well? I'll tell you what would happen real quick. The Voting Rights Act would be restored. And much more. We would see civil rights being honored. Because once more, it is not just the schools that benefit, it is the states as well. So I am, again, not putting the onus on black athletes. I think we ask way too much of black folks in this country. But I am putting the onus on each and every athlete who is skilled and good at their position and good at their job to just think about for a moment the seismic shift and the change within the electorate and the minds of so many Americans that can occur if they took a stand on this issue.